Hi, and welcome to the My Relationship with Food program. Today I'm going to be showing you a really quick and easy delicious tart, samphire and feta cheese. So into my mixing bowl I've got one large egg here, so I'm just going to beat that together. That's going to go into my mixing bowl. And then I'm going to add in, I'm using coconut butter, so it's odorless, it's not coconut oil, it's actually coconut butter. So that's going in. And then I'm going to season with a little bit of sea salt, so 2 pinches. And then the flour that I'm actually using is a gluten-free flour, which is oat flour. I've already sieved this in, so I'm just going to pour it straight in. Okay. And then I'm going to mix this all together. Okay, so I'm now going to get my hands in and I'm going to start forming a ball with the dough. It's quite good to have your hands not too hot so it can form really nicely. So I'm just going to form that into a ball. As soon as you get it into a ball, then you can use your other hand and make sure that it's all formed together nicely. So just squeeze that together. So this is your dough. So just kind of massage it in together so it's nicely incorporated. And just check that you've got any other extra bits in the bowl that might need to be added. Okay. So now I'm going to massage that together. Whoops, lost a bit there. So that's my dough. And then I'm going to use, I need some baking beans and I've got parchment paper here. So I'm going to be using a 9-inch fluted loose bottom tin. So I've got my dough here, so I'm not actually going to roll it out with a rolling pin. I'm actually just going to place it into the base of the tin and then push down. So make sure that it's on the base, and then what you'll do is you'll start pushing up against the sides. So obviously I'm working with a gluten-free flour, so I've tried my best to make sure that you'll get a lovely crust, but this process has to be done using your fingers. I like to use my index finger just to kind of level it out and just make sure, you want to ensure that the base of the tart is quite solid at the bottom, so don't overpack the edges. So this process takes quite a while. Don't rush it because you really want to make sure it's really even and level. Okay, if you're slightly worried that you haven't got enough dough, just really be patient with it. And then what you can do is slightly push it up at the sides and just push it off here and just fill it in the hole here. So don't worry, don't panic. There's plenty of dough in here to go round. Okay, so I'm almost there. And what I'm doing now is just double checking, cross checking that it's all even on the base and at the sides. So when you get to the sides and the base, when you're happy with the base, what you need to do is just again use your index finger and just go right round and just push it in to the sides so you get a nice crust. Go all the way round and just push it up slightly so you're evening it out. And then what I like to do when I reach the beginning of where I started, just slightly push it so that it meets the edges now. So just push it back down and level it out so that it's all completely even. Okay. Okay, so my base is now ready. I'm just going to use a fork and I'm just going to make a couple of incisions on the base. Make sure you get around the edge as well. This just helps to let some air circulate around the base. I'm just going to do a final prick, and then I'm going to add the parchment paper here and just gently lift up the sides, holding down the middle, and really just push it around the edges. I'm just going to add in my baking beans. These are ceramic baking beans. If you don't have them, you can just use rice, or if you've got some lentil kidney beans, you could use those instead. So I've preheated my oven to 180 on the fan. I'm now going to cook the base in the oven for 15 minutes. Then I'm going to remove the baking beans and cook for a further 10 minutes. Okay, so now I'm going to make the filling. I've got my shiitake mushrooms here, my samphire, and I've got my seasonings and honey or agave. Okay, so I'm just going to pop on my stove to a medium heat. And I'm going to add in here, I've got coconut butter. So this is odorless. I'm just going to pop that there. Then I'm just going to wait for it to warm up. And then I'm going to add in my sliced shiitake mushrooms. These are going in. Okay, so I'm just going to saute these first for a bit to get them nice and soft. My shiitake mushrooms are really soft now and they've got this glossy little shine to them. I'm now going to season them with garlic granules here, so a couple of pinches. You can use fresh garlic if you prefer. So that's going in. Then I've got my lovely herbamare. So this is infused salt with herbs and a bit more garlic. So a couple of pinches of that. Some cracked black pepper. So a couple of pinches. So I'm now going to stir that and make sure all the seasonings are incorporated with the mushrooms. Then I'm going to add in my samphire here. So just add that in. And then I'm going to cook that off for 1 minute. And in here, I've got honey or agave that you can use. So adding that in. This cuts through the saltiness of the samphire, and as well, we've got the saltiness from the feta. So I'm just adding a little bit of honey just to give it that little touch of sweetness, because I love nothing more than a salty cheese with honey. So I'm going to cook this for approximately 1 minute just to soften out the samphire and get all the flavours and the juices together mixed in. So you know when it's ready when the samphire starts to wilt down. So almost there, and then I'm going to turn that off and just leave that to cool. Okay, so my samphire has been cooking for a minute with the shiitake mushrooms. The smell is absolutely divine, and I'm just going to leave this to off the heat now, and I'm now going to move on to the filling. Okay, so my tart has been in the oven for 15 minutes. I'm just going to carefully lift up the sides, and what I want to do is I just want to remove the baking beans. I'm just going to pour the beans into the container. As you can see, now that I've removed the baking beans, this is the base. And I'm now just going to bake it for a further 10 minutes. Now I'm going to make my filling. I've got 6 large eggs in here, so I'm just going to beat them together. Whenever you make like a tart or any sort of cake, always bring your eggs and leave them out to room temperature. A little top tip, if you're in a rush and you haven't had time to remove the eggs from the fridge, just immerse them into a bowl of lukewarm water so it just actually brings it to room temperature. So that's a top tip for the day. So beat this together. Okay, so I've now beaten my eggs and I'm going to season it with white pepper, so a couple of pinches. And then I'm going to season this with herbamare, but if you don't have herbamare, you can just use sea salt. Remember, as I said before, that the feta is quite salty and so is the samphire, so just go easy on the seasoning. Then I'm going to add in my crumbled feta here. So I'm just going to add that in. Okay. And then I'm just going to mix this around gently. Okay, so when you're whisking, you might find some chunky pieces of feta, so just push it down with a fork and then just bring it back to you to flatten it out. But it's quite nice to have a few chunky pieces of feta. So just bring it in and squash it out. So in my bowl, just to recap, I've got 6 large eggs that are beaten, I've got 200 grams of crumbled feta, I've seasoned it with white pepper and herbamare, and I'm now just going to add in my samphire and shiitake mushrooms. So these are cooled now, and I'm just going to mix it all in. Give it all a gentle stir, make sure everything's all incorporated and mixed in well together, and as soon as your tart case has come out of the oven, you're just going to pour this in and pop it in the oven for another 25 to 30 minutes. My tart case is now out of the oven, and I'm just going to pour my mixture in. Just do it slowly. Okay. And then just use a spoon to just level it out, just to make sure that you've got a bit of everything everywhere. And you can actually just lift up a bit, so you just pick up the samphire, just so you see that when it's cooked. Just push anything down. So that's all been done, and now I'm just going to pop it back in the oven for a further 25 to 30 minutes. Usually I find in my oven I cook it for 30, but everybody's ovens are different, so just set your timer for 25 minutes, just give it a little prod and see if it's firm, otherwise cook for a further 5 minutes. Okay, so my tart has been cooking for half an hour. I'm just going to remove it from the oven now. So here it is. It looks absolutely fantastic. So I'm just going to pop this on the cooling rack to cool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use a mug here, and I'm going to place that on top of my presentation board. And then I'm just going to let the tart rest for about 5 minutes, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up the tart and place it on top of the mug, and that will release the sides. So let's have a go. So I'm just going to place that on top here and just gently release the side, and there you go. The next bit now is also quite crucial, so just lift up underneath, slide to the left, remove the mug and remove the tart tin, and then just gently ease off the tart and slide it onto your presentation board. Okay, there's many ways that you can serve this delicious tart. I love to serve it straight from the oven to the table, although it's equally as delicious served with a lovely salad and served cold. And there you go, a delicious samphire and feta tart.